Michelle, let me start with you. What do you make of the current Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, and what are your thoughts about its possible repeal?
I don't know. I think sometimes it's easy for us to sit back and make laws and things like that, but how do they really come through in our society? And so I think that's what I'm more concerned about. How will this actually breed and breathe throughout our society? We should be instilling policies for, fairness and things like that in same-sex marriages, but it's like, how will it, actually play out in our society? And that's my bigger concern.
Well, somebody help me understand, what is the actual fear from service men and women about having someone who is homosexual, bisexual, in their ranks serving alongside them? What is the fear from the people in the service?
Well, somebody told me that they wouldn't want a gay person close to them if they were about to attack and everybody gets and huddles up close together. They don't want another man close to them. And I'm like, you're fighting for lives, for your life. What makes you think this gay man is even thinking about you in a sexual way?
Mm-hmm.
The presence of people who are gay or lesbian or other forms of choices or alternative lifestyles has always existed in the military.
Thank you.
It's there. I mean, you can ask anybody who's served in the military, and I saw a couple of reports of people saying, oh, please, yeah, I know my friends and my fellow colleagues, they're there. So it wasn't talked about. So I don't think it's the issue of the fact that it exists, but when it turns into a legal issue, it's a human rights issue as well. I mean, what is the reason not to grant those things? That, to me, is the most appropriate question. And I haven't heard a strong enough argument in that regard. What's the reason not to do it?
Well,
does anyone have that answer?
Well, I wonder, how do you guys feel versus how the women feel?
I feel like I understand both sides of the issue. I do understand how certain men would feel like if they know that an openly gay man is around them, their first thought would be, oh, is he looking at me? Does he want me? Is there a sexual thing? Which is interesting because I don't think that men in general are attracted to every single woman that passes. So I find it interesting that the assumption is that a gay man is interested in every single man that he sees. I think there's a disconnect there. On the other hand, I'm not sure how, if gays are serving in the military now, which we know, how that is, and they're quiet about it, I'm not sure what the difference is. It's already happening. If the distinguishing factor is openness or not, I don't know how that's going to change anything. And frankly, I think if you're going to put your life on the line for this country, it shouldn't matter who you sleep with.
Right,
Amen.
exactly. Amen.
Yeah, and I agree as well. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a job. It already exists. Moving forward, the fight is about whether or not people who are already doing their job and doing their job well should also get the same legal rights as other people who can be free about their own sexuality because it's, quote unquote, accepted by the dominant culture. I think it's a human rights issue.
Stigma in the African American community surrounding HIV and AIDS. Lisa, you do a lot of work around this issue. How exactly does that stigma play out for people in their daily lives as they live and deal with this disease?
Interesting, because stigma impacts the people who are HIV positive, but it also, impacts people who are not positive or who don't know their status, because it prevents people from getting treatment, education, prevention. I thought it was interesting. I did a town hall meeting in Queens, New York, and it was called Real Men Fight AIDS, and I really wanted to focus on heterosexual men getting involved in advocacy. And what's interesting, one man told me in his work, there's stigma within even working to help our community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just so much stigma in so many different areas of our community in addressing this. And we talk about black women, and black women, make up about 70% of new female AIDS cases. But homosexual black men are the majority of the population that is really impacted with HIV/AIDS. And because we also are dealing with homophobia, you don't hear as much.
Yeah, this is a complex topic because the homosexual men that you mentioned, that's one group. There's this other group of men, which I guess they may be able to be called homosexual, but there's this group of men that live very quote unquote straight lives, who have wives and girlfriends and female partners who are also having sex with men that in turn go and infect these women who are the fastest growing rate of infection in our community.
You're right. And so now we have, and then there's a whole nother layer because yes, these women are getting infected, but we got to understand the reasons that they're allowing men to have sex with them unprotected. There's a lot of condom negotiation things that we need to talk about, but also why are they having sex? Do they need to have sex with this man so they can pay their bills? People have sex for different reasons. It's not just pleasure. It's to make sure that their family has food on the table. So we have to be aware of how can we help women and protect them without ruining, say, the quality of life of a child because now, they're not going to have heat or shelter because mommy can't have sex with
X, Y, and so. I get it. Derek, are you there?
Yes, I am. For many, many people, stigma is one of the biggest things I've always believed has been a big part of making me who I am now.
Right.
In my experience, my family rallied and supported me, my friends as well. And I'm originally from the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. So that was unheard of. Many Caribbean countries, like you may know, homosexuality is one of the biggest challenges. That the idea of being gay is one thing, and you don't wake up one day and realize that you want to be gay. But then when you get tested one day, you realize, oh my goodness, there goes my life. And my story was a little different. My lover committed suicide when he found out, and I was young, and I remember feeling like, oh my God, he left me holding the bag.
Okay, so hold up, because this is a mouthful, Derek. Now this is my first time talking to you. So you're saying that your partner, when he found out that he was HIV positive, actually committed suicide?
That's correct.
Wow.
I've been positive now for 12 years, and I'm not yet 30.
Wow.
So I'm aware that there are many of the young people out there who could utilize the story I'm having, or whose friends and family could say, we could turn ourselves around and we may have a cousin or a brother or a sister who we think is positive, who we think is gay. Let's try to embrace him and let's try to embrace her like how his family did to him.
Yes, now tell me how your family has reacted to everything that you're sharing with us.
Well, it's funny. I was 17, and my father was a policeman. My mother is an attorney. And those worlds often collided because they had very different ways of dealing with things. My mother was more the one who worried about community thought and status. And my father was very down to earth. He was just very real. Mm-hmm. And when I tested, the next day I told him, I said, I think I got this test result and I'm positive. I remember my father just looked at me and said, we will be fine. And this is in the 90s when in Belize there was no treatment. There wasn't.
So your Caribbean father looked at you and said, we're going to be fine.
Yes, and I remember even a couple of weeks after that, I was just doing dishes in the kitchen. He just came and hugged me, and we both cried on the floor.
Wow.
As a policeman, that was a big thing, because he was used to being hard and being the hard line. But when it came to us, it was not the same way.
His children. Derek, you were listening, and you heard Lisa, and you heard our discussion earlier about don't ask, don't tell, and that the military policy. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, my goodness. I think, it's interesting that the military could be used as an instrument for change and even regime change. We've seen it many times, but not for social change. And that's always interesting to me. Many people who are in the military are the ones who seem to be not able to embrace this. And I don't see why not. I can't understand why not. Now, I have one question when it comes to that. Do they do social promotion as well? For example, are all the generals married? Because I would think that if you're 40 and you've not been married, and if you're on a down low, or if let's say you are gay but you don't want to get married, does that impact your ability to be promoted? You're forced to get married even if you want to increase your career.
Well, Dirk,
as a military person.
Let me ask you as we go now, do you think the policy should be changed?
Definitely. I think socially, the military is just another arm. Years ago, black people could not serve in the military. So when that opportunity came, it was instrument of social change. Now we have the opportunity now to continue that change.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate your thoughts.
Not a problem.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, joining us now, I have a call from 314. Is that St. Louis? Go ahead with your comment.
Good morning, Robert.
Is this Robert Townsend?
This is Robert.
Hey,
Townsend.
Robert Townsend. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Give me your comment.
Hi, Fred. Listen, I'm just before God right now. I mean, I've been listening to this show all morning. It sounds really well on this end. Just if I can, just kind of correlate everything that you've been talking about regarding military repealing it, don't ask, don't tell policy. I'm just getting to the point, and I'm at the point in my life at 43 years old that I'm looking forward to when people can be themselves. And, you know, in this vast world of communication, there's so much stigma. You guys have really been throwing that word around, and rightly so. I mean, people cannot still in 2010 come to the dinner table, come to a community forum, and openly say who they are.
Right.
And so that's one of the biggest problems of why HIV and AIDS
spreads.
Still, people cannot talk about it. Black people especially, people can't be themselves. That's why a lot of people are still dying and committing suicide. I heard that man just now say that his lover committed suicide after finding out that he was HIV positive. You know, and it doesn't have to be that way. And that's the sad thing about it, is that people do not have to commit suicide after finding out this dreadful news.
Well, you mentioned the church, Robert, and you mentioned that you are before God as you listen to the show. Do you think that the church plays a role in why African Americans in particular have not been able to reconcile this disease within the community?
Wholeheartedly, if I can say. I mean, the bottom line for me, that number one is ignorance. Yeah, the church is crippling and hurting people Sunday after Sunday. I mean, people cannot have a Tuesday night Bible study and say, look, I've been HIV positive for 6 years, doing the church work, leading all these functions. I've been creating all these different programs, moving this church along progressively, and yet, yeah, I'm gay. You may know that, but you don't know that I've been living with HIV for the last 12 years, and I don't look like I'm dying tomorrow. You know, so the church needs to wake up. Some of these ministers are getting it. They are preaching a progressive mindset that Jesus has in 2010, but a lot of them are still stuck in the mud, and they're closeted themselves, some of them, and there's a lot of ignorance there, and people just do not want to use the church as a venue to help people live their lives.
Well, on balance, Robert, let me just throw this out just for purposes of conversation, and we have a few minutes left here, and I appreciate you calling and appreciate your comments. On balance, many preachers are preaching what they see as the word, which says that homosexuality is wrong, and so they feel justified in preaching the word of God literally. What's wrong with that?
They can do that, but at the same time, I'm an elder myself, not by choice, but by appointment from my bishop here in St. Louis. We are living epistles. And I'm the 67th Bible. You're the 68th book of the Bible. There are some living epistles out here who've got new, relevant revelation from God, who is spirit. And so God sees no gender. He doesn't see homosexuality. He doesn't see you as a gay man. He doesn't see you as a gay woman. The Lord is spirit. And when these preachers are throwing around the Bible, and they want to throw Romans 10:9 at you, but still, God looks more at 10:10 where the heart is, you know? I just think that there's a lot of the church itself worldwide needs to repent and really take another look at itself. Stop throwing around these dogmatic scriptures that are outdated.
Robert Townsend, full disclosure, I've known you for 20 years. I thank you for calling in today. You're my friend and my brother.